Hi everyone, I hope you've enjoyed the past couple of chapters of The Snowman, and I'm here today to read chapter 3. Enjoy. James opened the door, and then they were out in it, out in the marvellous moonlit white of it, in the still and silence of it. This was snow all right, proper deep, crunchy snow, the real thing, snow like neither James nor Bertie had ever seen before. Bertie ran off at once to explore, following his nose as he always did, waggling his tail wildly, but, to James's great relief, not barking. The snow seemed to have silenced Bertie too. James trudged off through the snow, down past the weedy duck pond towards the bottom of the garden, and opened the gate out into Old Tree Field beyond. Here he was far enough from the house not to be seen. Now he could do as he pleased. Jump up and down in the snow, roll down the hill in it, cavort and somersault and frolic in it, and Bertie did the same. James swung on the oak tree's lowest branch, and the snow fell down from the back of his neck. He stomped round the tree in a great wide circle, leaving deep footprints behind him in the snow. Breathless with the fun of it, he stood there looking all around, admiring the circle of footprints he had made. That was when a sudden brilliant thought came into his head. He knew at once what he was going to do, and how he was going to do it. All thoughts of Christmas and presents and Father Christmas, even thoughts of the bright green mountain bike, had vanished. Nothing mattered to James now but the snow and the huge snowman he decided he was going to make, now, right now. He began by making a snowball, just a small one, but squeezed tight in his hands till it was hard. Then he got down on his knees in the snow and began to roll it along, slowly at first, into a bigger one, which became an even bigger one, as big as a football now. Even this was not quite big enough, he thought, not yet, so he rolled it until it was the perfect size for what he had in mind. Bertie came leaping across the field, tongue hanging out, tail whirling. "Watch, Bertie," James told him. "Sit and watch." So Bertie sat and watched as James finished his giant snowball and began to build a huge tower of snow, packing it higher and higher till it was above his head, as high as he could reach. Then he was trimming and patting down the sides so it was just right. But now he had a problem. It was too tall, too high. Bertie was looking up at him, head on one side, as if to say, "Now what are you going to do, clever clogs? You need a ladder, don't you?" James ran back to his dad's shed and fetched the stepladder. Putting a ladder up in the snow isn't easy because it keeps sinking when you stand on it, but James managed. Climbing it wasn't easy either, especially when carrying a huge snowball, but after a wobble or two, James managed to do it as well. Gently and carefully, he lowered the snowball into place and began packing snow round so it stayed there and didn't fall off. That done, he climbed down the ladder again and stood back to look up and admire his snowman, who now had a proper head. He wasn't finished, but he was already brilliant, the biggest and best snowman James had ever seen. Bertie must have thought he was some kind of giant, because he suddenly began barking his head off and wouldn't stop. He ran round and round the snowman, yelping and yapping in wild excitement. James ran after him, trying to catch him and calm him down. But Bertie wasn't going to be caught. He was telling this huge white giant of a stranger just what he thought of him, and as loudly as he could. From the stables, big was neighing, little was braying. The ducks were quacking from the pond, the sheep bleating from the barn, and soon the pigs and cows were joining in. It was a whole animal chorus, and the lights went on in the farmhouse. "Oh, thanks a lot, Bertie," James said. "Look what you've started. You've woken everyone up, my mum, Dad and Grandma." So of course it wasn't long before Dad came running out into the field. "What's going on? What's all this racket about? What are you doing out here, James?" he said, and he sounded really cross. But then he noticed the snowman. "Wow, what a wonderful snowman. You built that?" "All by myself," James said proudly. "Well, he's a great snowman," Dad said proudly too. But if you ask me, he needs eyes and a nose and a mouth and a hat. You can have my old hat if you like. It's in the shed. Come along. He didn't seem at all cross anymore. He took James's hand and walked him back through the snow. Mum's a bit upset, you know. So's Grandma. All that terrible racket and hullabaloo from the farmyard. Quite a noise those animals made. Woke us all up. Then we discovered you weren't in your bed, and we looked everywhere for you. But I wasn't that worried. One glance out the window and I knew you'd be out in the snow. I was a boy once, you know. I never built such a magnificent snowman. Massive he is, taller than I am. You won't to tell anyone about my snowman, will you, Dad? Not until he's finished. I want him to be a surprise. And that's the end of chapter 3. Thanks.